I agree. All right, looks like Dave and Eric are just about ready to play. Get your matchup slide, new graphics for season 2. Eric versus David. These guys both went 5-4. They actually played in the first round of the playoffs last year, with Eric getting the win. And I mean, roommates too. So we get kind of a showdown here. I mean, if I hadn't had you versus Kai, I probably would have chosen these guys as the feature match that I would have been hyping over social media. Should be a fun one, yeah?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this match.
Let us see what happens. David's on Dredge.
Oh, so he was.
It was the double fake. Haha, I win whatever pride dollar.
All right. To be fair, Ifro also told me, like, of course Dave's faking. That wasn't real. That is funny, though.
Yeah, he's not. Nobody in this league is going to reply all without meaning to do it. Interesting. And so Eric's on Delver. That does not surprise me. I kind of had him on in that same category as you, where, I mean, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys worked together. Not that you should tell me. If there wasn't a Pro Tour, maybe he'd have been one of the guys experimenting with gifts. But given that there was a Pro Tour coming up, the Delver list, you guys both top 3 that vintage holiday festival with. You just turn the cruises into dig through time. I think that deck should be fine.
Yeah, that's not incredibly. I mean, that's, Paul Cheon has been streaming some vintage actually. I gave him a set of Power 9 because thanks to the holiday champs, I had an extra one.
There you go.
And the first deck he built was the Delver deck that I sent him. And then he's like, hey, Cruise got restricted. What do I do? I was like, hey, just put in 3 digs instead of 3 cruises, which probably isn't the actual right swaps, but that's what I told him. And he said it played pretty well. So
yeah, it's close. I did a little testing with Delver, and that's exactly how I had my Gauntlet deck set up.
Yeah, so game 1 is going to be really tough for Ifro. I've played this matchup before, and the thing is, the Delver deck is an awesome vintage deck, but it's not a broken vintage deck. It really doesn't win on turn 2. It just can't. And unlike other blue decks, sometimes if you're playing any blue deck with like Tinker or Time Vault, then you can beat Dredge some percentage of the games because you just go Lotus Tinker and then they lose. The Delver deck is not going to do that, and I don't think Ifro can win any sort of realistic game 1, especially Dave's hand has a Bazaar and Dredgers, so that's likely going to be enough. Time Walk is good. Time Walk is one of the cards that really does give you a shot because if Ifro, let's say, libraries into Lotus and is able to play like 2 Pyromancers to go Bolt Time Walk maybe, but he's pretty far away from that right now.
Now, did Eric mulligan, or are we missing a hand off the left of our hand cam?
Yeah, we're missing a card.
That library's a lot better with a 7-card starter than a 6-card starter on the play for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Bazaar of Baghdad is gonna, let David draw 2, discard 3. He's gonna discard like Icarid, Stinkweed Imp, Grave Troll. Then on his upkeep, in response to the Icarid trigger, he just taps it again, dredges Grave Troll and Stinkweed Imp, puts Icarid back into play. I mean, this is a classic turn 2 kill. Like if he gets lucky, turn 3 if he gets unlucky. So it is. I mean, that's what Dredge does. The question is, does Ifro have 4 sideboard cards? Does he have 6? Does he have 7? These numbers are all very, very different.
Now, do you think Eric's mulligan decision was affected by not... If he'd known David was on Dredge, you can't keep a Library of Alexandria start versus the Dredge player, right? It's just
Ifro would have mulled this hand against Dredge, but you can't win game 1 anyway, so he didn't really lose any percentage there.
Fair enough.
And you're not mulling Library on the play with like Misstep Bolt, Pyromancer, Time Walk, Volcanic against an unknown opponent. So, none of Dave's sending his list shenanigans really mattered there either. I mean, it was fun. It was funny, but it didn't really do much. Like, Ifro would have kept that hand in the dark, and if he knew he was playing against Dredge, he would have mulliganed, but he wasn't going to beat Dredge game 1 anyway. I mean, this is one of the most lopsided matchups, is Delver versus Dredge game 1. This is the matchup, the dream matchup for Dredge.
Fair enough. So David activated the Bazaar Baghdad on his turn, discarded a couple of Dredgers. Now, as a response to this Icarid trigger, which happened at the beginning of his upkeep, he's going to Bazaar again. He's going to fill his graveyard up with more cards. This potentially gives him food for the Icarid and sets him up to use his draw step to also dredge Golgari Grave Troll.
Yeah, and unless he his 2 Dredges draws from Bazaar miss Dredgers completely, he gets to dredge on his draw step. He's getting, we see a Narcomoeba. He's probably got the ammunition to get the Icarid out as well.
I think I see 2 copies of Bridge from Below, if I'm not mistaken.
It looks like 2 bridges. So basically what Dredge is trying to do here is just Cabal Therapy Ifro to make sure he can't win and then win next turn. Though if David hits Cabal Therapy, turning one of his creatures into 2 zombie tokens, he could then flashback Dreader turn if he hit one. It looks like he did to get back like a Sun Titan, and the Sun Titan can get another Bazaar. He hit 2 more Narcomoebas on his draw step. So yeah, if it isn't a literal turn 2 kill, he might be able to strip Ifro's hand turn 2 and put himself in a position where he's not going to lose.
Now, the way that he actually wins on turn 2 requires Flamekin Zealot, right? Yeah, Eric has seen enough. Eric is just, we're done. I don't need to make you go through the motions here. You're clearly going to kill me. Maybe not this turn, but definitely next turn. And there's just nothing Delver can do about that in a game 1 scenario.
And it's possible that Dave didn't even have Flamekin Zealot. I think you can build dredge decks that don't, because if you Cabal Therapy your opponent a bunch and then you like Sun Titan back something or get back an Angel of Despair or something, you don't always need to win that turn. I mean, almost no deck can beat you after you've resolved 3 Cabal Therapies and then blown up a permanent or whatever. He might still have it. I mean, a lot of them do also, just because you don't want to let them like Oath or something. But in general, once you're in that spot, your actual kill condition doesn't matter too much. So
now what happens after sideboarding? It just depends how much Eric has?
It's like really it's really on Ifro, because Dave is going to bring in the, I think, normal dredge sideboard stuff. You saw Undiscovered Paradise and City of Brass. Like, Dave is playing Mana Confluence, rather. Mana Dredge, because there's no real reason to play Manaless, because you have enough cards that work. So Dave's going to bring in some combination of, like, Wispmare, Chain of Vapor. You saw main deck Ingot Chewer already. Just a couple ways to disrupt what Ifro has. Maybe Mental Misstep and Chalice of the Void. Those are also cards, though Chalice isn't very good against Delver. Ifro is going to bring in ideally 6 or 7 cards. It may be as low as 4.
Well, how much did you guys have in the holiday festival tournament?
I believe we had just 4. We just had the 4 cages. We just didn't expect a ton of dredge.
Okay.
The thing is, if it wasn't for cage, I would almost say play 0 dredge hate, because if you're going to play like 3 dredge cards, you might as well not play them, because you're not going to beat dredge anyway. But sure. Because cage is so good against Oath, playing the 4 cages is pretty free. So I mean, we'll see what Ifro has. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 4 cages, plus if he expected dredge, like maybe 1 to 3 more cards. It's going to be tough to go over 7, but 5 and 6 are both very, very likely. Some of the other cards Ifro may look to bring in are cards like Tormod's Crypt, Ravenous Trap, Nile Spellbomb. Though Leyline of the Void is, I think, one of the most effective ways to beat dredge. But in a deck that can't cast it and it has a bunch of card draw, Leyline's not as good, because Ifro can't really dig into it. He can't preordain or Treasure Cruise or dig through time into ley lines because he can't cast them. So there you'd want something like Tormod's Crypt or Ravenous Trap. But
that makes sense.
And once Ifro has those, he can put Dave in a position where Dave has to play his cards to stop the hate cards. Then Ifro's counterspells turn on. Part of the reason dredge is so sick is that counterspells don't really stop it. It doesn't, I mean, it puts spells on the stack, but not in a way that they can be interacted with very easily, because Cabal Therapy for free is so efficient.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, the important part of Cabal Therapy is that you got to sacrifice a creature.
Yep.
Well, that's the cost. You can't stop that with a counterspell. Interesting. All right. Well, let's see if Eric can win the 2 sideboarded games.
And is game 1 dredge mulligans a lot, because it has to literally mulligan every hand without Bazaar Baghdad. But game 2 is where you see the Delver deck having to mulligan. You just can't keep a 7-card hand without hate, unless it's, again, some kind of like double Pyromancer Lotus Time Walk hand. So,
well, there's a cage in Eric's hand. Only a ruby for mana, though?
Ooh, this is tough, because you have your hate card, and if you draw blue mana, this hand becomes very good. But if you just play Mox Cage and it gets misstepped, or it gets Chain of Vapor or Ingot Chewer, it's just so bad for you. So this hand you're definitely keeping.
Yeah, he mulliganed into Volcanic Island Grafdigger's Cage. Much better than Mox Ruby Grafdigger's Cage.
So now Dave has the Mental Misstep, but he has no Bazaar.
Yeah, does he keep that hand? I don't think he can keep that, can he?
I would be surprised if he did. The problem is, let's say he keeps it and his plan is to discard Stinkweed Imp on turn 1 after drawing to 8. If he had to use Mental Misstep turn 1, then he's not able to do that. Looks like he did keep it, though.
Well, I think he did a Serum Vision hand, right?
Oh, so he mulliganed to 1?
Did he mulligan all the way to 1? Oh, wow, okay. He mulliganed all the way to 1.
So Dave mulliganed down to 1 then. There's just a lag on the hand cam there. So that's pretty absurd.
Crazy. All right, for the record, Kai has officially given up on the quest for internet. All right. Kai sends his apologies, but he will not be playing this week.
Hey, I mean, it's up to him if he wants a game loss. Like, I'm not too worried about it. So Ifro has double Grafdigger's Cage here, but he's just choosing to play Pyromancer. The thing is, when Dave doesn't have a Bazaar in play, he can't really go off from nothing. It's not like Legacy Dredge with like breakthroughs and Faithless Looting or Celsium. He, Dave isn't gonna all of a sudden dredge 50 cards with just Undiscovered Paradise. So Ifro wanted to get a threat out first. Then he plays double cage. So Ifro is gonna win this game pretty handily.
Man, I thought the first game was lopsided. This is even crazier. Might take a few more turns, but at least as lopsided as game one was.
And here, I mean, we saw in practice, Dave again mulliganed every card, every hand without Bazaar Baghdad until he hit one card. At which point you don't want to mulligan that because you'd rather have the Stinkweed Imp in your hand than in your deck. So, but I remember looking, especially when you count in Serum Powders, the math is something like 96% to hit a Bazaar. If you're assuming you'll mulligan every hand. So there Dave has a Chain of Vapor, so he's gonna have a variety of cards. He's got to expect Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, we've just seen Cage from Eric in terms of sideboard cards.
Yeah. But we saw 1 and a 7 and then 1 and a 6, and he's drawn a second one here after a couple turns, so I'd be surprised if he had less than 4.
Yeah, I was just wondering if he had more than the 4 cages.
Yeah. I mean, he did board into cages, and my assumption is that he's got the full 4, just because it's such a good sideboard card. I keep saying that, but it's true.
No, totally agree.
Yeah, Ifro's got the 1 Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, still quite good. Still get to play 1.
All right, Delver flips, so and there's a 4. So yeah, so Dave can't really win this game.
Certainly wants to see as much of Eric's deck as he can, though. I mean, he's probably not going to see anything surprising, but
no, I mean, neither player has shown the other player anything that they did not already expect. Ifro doesn't know exactly what combination of cards Dave has to fight Grafdigger's Cage, but he saw an Ingot Tour game 1, so he's got to expect more of that sort of thing. So, Dave's also going to be on the play game 3, which is big when Grafdigger's Cage costs mana and Dave has mental missteps, which Ifro hasn't seen yet. Dave had a giant graveyard, so maybe Ifro saw one in there. I couldn't really see every card, but now that there's mental misstep to stop Grafdigger's Cage, and if Dave goes turn on Bazaar, Ifro kind of has to lead with Grafdigger's Cage. It could be a lot harder for Ifro. Here he didn't have a need to play an early cage, but he may get into that position. So
yeah, no, it all comes down to game 3. I mean, this is kind of the gambit you run when you run a dredge deck, right? You know the sideboarded games are going to be hard.
Well, there it didn't even
really
matter that it was sideboarded.
Yeah,
there Dave just fizzled. He mulled to 1, and Ifro may as well have not played Grafdigger's Cage. It didn't matter at all. But yes, that is what you sign up for when you play Dredge. Though, it's funny. Game 1 games are not very interactive. You just usually steamroll them, or they have a broken draw and you lose. Postboard games are surprisingly good with Dredge. I mean, I don't know if you remember Tom Martell's game against Bob Maher.
Oh, that was a great one.
Yeah, Tom had to use Chain of Vapors, and Bob should have bounced it back, and Tom maybe could have bounced it back also. There's just a lot going on, and those happen in post-board against Dredge, especially since sometimes the anti-Dredge deck or the other deck mulls to 5 to find hate, and then both players don't do anything, and then I've died to hardcast Golgari Thugs before, so I mean sometimes the games get messy, and those are kind of interesting.
Not even the Grave Troll, the Thug you died to. Crazy. Wow, it's fun to be back. I'm happy to be playing and talking about Vintage again. Definitely good times.
Yeah. So much of the opening hand the game is in this opening hand. Here.
Yeah.
Here, Ifro's certainly snap at keeping this. He's got Cage with misstep backup. Ooh, and there's a dig through time. And then
David can't possibly keep that, right?
The thing is, David has all his disruption, but what is he gonna do? Just say go?
Yeah, he's what? Misstep,
Nature's claim. But
I don't think you can keep that, not without a Bazaar.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you add a Bazaar instead of any card, and that hand becomes unbeatable because he's got the double misstep. But yes, he can stop Grafdigger's Cage, but Ifro doesn't need Grafdigger's Cage. If Dave goes turn 1 go or turn 1 Mana Confluence go, Ifro just plays turn 1 Delver and then turn 2 Preordain. And I guess Dave mental missteps them, but then he can't discard Troll, and then yeah, it just does not work out very well. So I think Dave may want to keep it. I don't know but I suspect he can't. I mean, there's also maybe some degree of lag. It looks like Dave mulled to 6 and then Serum Visioned or Serum Powdered. So we're gonna get his actual hand in a second here.
Okay.
Looks
yeah,
like
Eric's
this.
hand, great.
Yeah, Eric's hand is. I mean, you would probably choose to have something other than Dig Through Time in that spot, but other than that, honestly, this hand does not get much better. Dave's hand is very good too, though.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a fine 6. He leads with Mana Confluence and not Bazaar of Baghdad.
Yeah, he's gonna therapy Ifro for Grafdigger's Cage.
And
Ifro's,
hit.
yeah, Ifro's gonna misstep, Dave's gonna misstep, and then he's gonna name Grafdigger's Cage because he saw a bunch of them.
And it's the scariest card, like in the dark. Even if you hadn't seen them, you'd probably name it.
Yeah. Oh, so
Wow,
Dave actually took a
not
slightly
misstep.
riskier line here of waiting to misstep because that gives Ifro another turn to draw his own misstep. So Ifro may want to just cast Preordain here. I think it's safer to cast Preordain because you can find Mental Misstep. And you don't need to cage immediately. I guess there's a Cabal Therapy in the graveyard, so that's actually really close. I actually can't fault Ifro too much there, but then again, I don't know how Dave is getting a creature in play. I guess he's playing Undiscovered in an Archamoeba or a Bloodghast. I don't know. So Ifro can still find another cage here. He's going to get to look at a bunch of cards. But if he doesn't find a cage this turn, even if he finds one the turn after, the board position may be too tough to come back from.
Well, here's Preordain. Wonder if can our spotter see what he's looking at? Spell Pierce and Ravenous Trap.
Yeah, he's gonna bin Spell Pierce, and he's obviously gonna keep Ravenous Trap.
Yep.
Ravenous Trap is nice because unlike say Tormod's Crypt, it can't be interacted with via Nature's Claim and Ingot Chewer and that sort of thing. So Dave may not take it into account at all.
Yeah, it's not the most common card either. Like it's.
No.
I don't know that the Dredge player is even supposed to try to play around it until he's either way ahead and can afford to, or knows that it's there.
Yeah, though Cabal Therapy does kind of give up the trick. So.
Sure.
And Dave found another Bazaar here, so Dave could be in a spot where even though he's gonna most likely get trapped for a bunch of cards, if Ifro doesn't have pressure, Dave is still going to be able to Bazaar his way out of it. Though, the more time Ifro gets, the more he can cast, Dig Through Time and find Grafdigger's Cage plus Force to protect it or something, because Dave does also have an Ingot Chewer there. So this game is actually shaping up to be kind of interesting, because I think Ifro can't die this turn unless Dave does something like draw Cabal Therapy, but Dave's just going to be dredging. Ifro's likely going to have to cast Ravenous Trap this turn, but he's going to be able to cast some combination of Gush and Dig Through Time next turn, so he's going to see, something like 11, 12 cards after his draw step and maybe off other cantrips too. So it's kind of interesting.
Eric resolves his Delver. David used his Bazaar as a response to get some stuff into the yard. Now he's using Bazaar. I assume we're on his upkeep here. Sitting on upkeep, so he's going to activate the Bazaar on upkeep, spill a bunch more stuff into the graveyard. This will set him up to use his draw step to spill yet more stuff into the yard, but nope. Before we get to the draw step, Eric is going to activate Ravenous Trap. So the opponent had 3 or more cards put into the graveyard. Check. May pay this for 0. Check. Exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Crunch.
So I don't know. I think Ifro did that at that point because he wanted to stop Dave from being able to draw a Dredger.
Mm-hmm.
So that way Dave's hand ends up with 0 Dredger. So now Dave is back in Bazaar just milling territory, which is still effective, but it is a lot slower. Ifro's just trying to buy a turn or two. And if Dave wants to use Bazaar, he gives up on the Nature's Claim. So therefore, Ifro, if he does find a cage, it'll potentially be safe.
Now we had 20-some cards removed from David's library there? 24. How many bridges did we get rid of?
So you also end up in a spot sometimes. Yeah.
3 bridges?
Where Dredge gets enough cards removed that it has trouble assembling a really big army. Like one bridge is enough, but if you do something like if you hit 3 bridges, an Archamoeba and 2 Bloodghasts and maybe an Ichorid, I can't see. You do kind of end up in a spot where you don't get to kill them in one turn. You get to kind of mini go off and have to beat them over a course of a few turns. That's the kind of game a young Pyromancer can actually win.
Yeah, and we hit. How many of the Grave Trolls are in there too? Is it?
Looks like 2.
No,
Three.
3 of the Grave Trolls, 3 of the Bridges.
So
Yeah. This is
Dave's going to be slowed down here.
and he doesn't have any dredges right now. He's basically just, like you said, using Bazaar to mill, hoping that it'll hit a Grave Troll or some other dredger.
So even though, so Dave has a choice at the end of this turn, regardless of what Ifro does. I suppose in Dave's world, if Ifro plays a Graph Digger's Cage, the choice becomes very easy. You cast Nature's Claim, and then you start using Bazaar. But let's say Ifro just casts some card draw spells and passes the turn after hitting for 3. I feel like you have to use Bazaar, even though you get rid of Nature's Claim there, because you're not beating Ifro doing nothing.
I agree.
And this lets you Bazaar multiple times next turn. You're giving up so many potential Bazaarings if you don't do it in a turn here. Of course, again, if Ifro plays a Graph Digger's Cage, which is one of the cards he's digging for,
And
then
he
the
found
decision
one.
becomes a lot easier. So now he has to find a way to protect it too.
Oh, geez. He finds Graph Digger's Cage and Ravenous Trap.
Well, I mean, that's good, but Dave is going to get to Nature's Claim it. Ifro potentially is going to gush in response to look for a Mental Misstep or a Force of Will. And then Dave's going to get to use Bazaar a bunch of times. Ifro's going to get to use Ravenous Trap, but the one Delver still needs a few more turns. I mean, it's not like Ifro's going to win the game in 2 turns. Yeah.
Eric does play his Graph Digger's Cage. Dave's, of course, going to Nature's Claim it end step. Now, you're expecting a gush here from Ifro?
I am. I mean, it's not like his deck has incredibly high mana requirements, and if you hit Misstep or Force, you're in so much better shape.
Yeah. Turns 2 islands.
To more lands.
Mission.
So.
Down goes Graph Digger's Cage. All right, so we're still playing.
Yeah.
But that Ravenous Trap is a big deal here.
Yeah, it's more than a turn's worth of leeway. Sometimes it's only, if they have dredgers in their hand, it's only a turn. But here, this is multiple turns because Dave's having to do this the hard way.
Right.
And if Ifro snipes the right cards, then
Stinkweed.
Yeah, Stinkweed Imp is good. Then Dave might be in a spot where he no longer gets to win. I mean, I don't think Ifro's gonna kill the Imp now. You may do it in response to Narcomoeba's trigger though. But then Dave still has Imp in hand, double Bazaar.
Yeah, so Dave used his draw step to pick the Stinkweed Imp up via dredge, hit a Narcomoeba, and now Eric is thinking, well, that Narcomoeba triggers on the stack. There's not much else in the yard that he cares about though, other than the Narcomoeba, is there?
But well, there's a Cabal Therapy.
Oh, there is a Cabal Therapy? Okay, so if he lets Narcomoeba come into play, he's going to get therapied.
He is, but in response to the therapy, you can then just Ravenous Trap him if you want, or you can just let the therapy resolve if you really want. But there's also looks like Unmasks, not Icarids. They're very close together. Yeah, the question too is, does Dave want to snap off a therapy without having a dread return or bridge from the blow in the graveyard? Like he's not accomplishing that much right here. So
you've also got a couple professional poker players eyeing each other over this Cabal Therapy too.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point. Can you read your opponent for what you think they might be holding?
Yeah, like there's a chance Ifro thought like he had Ravenous Trap to make it look like he didn't have Ravenous Trap, because Dave would have expected him to pass really quickly if he did. So
right.
There's some interplay there.
Yeah, there's definitely some tells and some reverse tells. Even on Magic Online, where you can't see your opponent, just the timing of how quickly they respond to stuff is definitely a potential source of information. All right, so back on.
We found Strip Mine with Preordain, or Ifra did. So, and there's a cage. All right. Wow. Now things I think get a little easier, because now you can Strip Mine the Mana Confluence and then play a Sapphire Cage, because you know Stinkweed Imp's in Dave's hand. Now Dave is in a spot where he doesn't have any colored mana or a way to get rid of a Resolved Cage, so he doesn't really get to do that much.
Eric showed up ready for this matchup. That's the story I'm watching. Multiple Ravenous Traps in addition to the cages. He was not skimping on the dredge hate.
No, it looks like he has. I mean, at least 6 if we assume the cages are a 4 of, and potentially more. I mean, we don't know the exact numbers, but I would be surprised if it was less than 6, because you don't start playing Ravenous Traps till you have all your cages. I don't think.
Completely agree.
So Dave could be Bazaaring here, but it doesn't do anything.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know how Dave gets out of it from here, even just versus the cage.
He's on a quick enough clock. Delver over the course of 3 turns is a thing.
Yeah, Dave just draws off the top of his deck for his draw step. Hits another Bazaar, which he doesn't bother to play. He's trying to set himself up to potentially keep a card off of a future Bazaar.
Yeah, he can now Bazaar up to 1 card essentially. Draw up to 4, discard down to 3, or discard 3, and then maybe try to find a Nature's Claim or Ingot Chewer, and then 2 turns later or so try to find a way to play one of his 5-color lands. Yeah.
But Delver's chipping away, down to 7.
Also, Ifra has a Force of Will now, so if he draws any blue card, the game is basically sealed. And he still has a couple turns. So Dave found the land, so he has to keep a Mana Confluence here.
Sounds right.
He does bring the Bloodghast back, which is... Oh, no, it doesn't even do that. It triggers the Bloodghast. He doesn't even bring it back, though. Cage really does kind of everything.
Yeah, no Bloodghast for you. Ugh, Serum Powder?
Yeah, and Dave can't even use Bazaar this turn, which means that he's going to get to see 3 cards next turn to try to hit Cage. And he only has that 1 turn window before Ifra's Force of Will goes online, just off being hardcast.
Right.
But Dave still has to beat a Delver at 4 life at that point, potentially. And I guess once he taps the Mana Confluence, yeah, it's very relevant.
Yeah, he wanted to find Undiscovered Paradise rather than Mana Confluence.
I guess Bridge from Below does trigger when there's a Cage in play. So, because they don't come out of the graveyard, even though that's kind of how we think about it.
Correct.
But the 2/2 zombies aren't really going to block the Delver Secrets anyway, so.
All right, fishing for Nature's Claim. Some way, or Ingot Chewer, some way to get Grafdigger's Cage off the graveyard. Off the battlefield. Swing and a miss.
Yeah, and now he's got a chump. The thing is with Ifra's got Force active now, and he's got a Ravenous Trap, and Dave doesn't have that much. It looks like he's got the Nature's Claim though. So he did hit, but yeah, Ifra has all the cards he needs, I think, to carry this through.
Yeah. Narcomeep the chump blocks, Dave preserving his last 4 points of life.
Yeah, he has to stay above 1 to cast Nature's Claim.
Down goes Grafdigger's Cage, or is Eric going to hardcast Force of Will here?
Almost assuredly countering it.
All right.
You could Ancestral to try to hit a blue card, but that seems pretty foolish. So I would just go ahead and hardcast Force. And that should basically do it, because now Dave ends up with no cards in play that do anything. Even if he draws on his draw step a way to kill Grafdigger's Cage, he still just dies to the Delver because he's not getting a flying blocker out of nowhere.
Oh, let's Ravenous Trap, just for value. Just so that there's 52 cards in the removed from game zone.
Yep, and that'll do it.
That will do it. Eric Froehlich. Blue-Red Delver may have lost 3 Treasure Cruises, but still clearly a real deck.
Yeah, and I mean, the post-war game's dominated by hate cards. Though I guess game 2, Dave would have lost to, a standard Delver deck with no with no hate.
Yep. Eric onto the board with the first win. So Dredge, it's going to be fun to watch Dredge play out. Like you predicted that people were going to put some moves on, and we might see more Dredge and more shops than we saw last year.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I think Delver is still a thing. Now, I think I agree with you that the restriction of Treasure Cruise means Delver is no longer this just omnipresent beast driving variety out of the metagame. Now it's just one of the options.
Yeah, I think that Delver is just a good blue deck now instead of being the blue deck.
Fair enough. Well, let's go learn about some more decks. I'm going to leave you here. It's my turn to play, so I'm going to go get ready to play against Rich Shea. And Eric is going to join you, so you guys can chat about Eric's deck or speculate about me and Rich or what have you.
I suppose that you should probably get to see my deck list then, if we're playing after this round.
Oh, because you're about to see mine.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's totally fair.
I mean...
It's a week 3 game. Okay,
yeah.
So
as much as I was tempted to just be like, but yes, no, that doesn't make any sense. So yes.
Okay, so yeah, we'll just make sure our spotters.
Well, you'll get an email. I guess I should at that point just get emailed your list too, and then we'll see what's going on.
Yep, I'm sure Josh can set that up.
Sounds good.
See you guys shortly when I'll be playing.